Is going on? Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Schneid. It's gonna be a fun one. I'm excited for this one. We've been away for a little bit. Streamed on Monday on Pat's stream on the Fantasy Dog Pound. There was the four of us on there. BBG, PPR, Tyler. It was a good time. Go check out that episode. Definitely was a lot of fun, a lot of mayhem. But this is the kind of the big one. So today we're doing the mock draft 1.0. I only do one mock draft. I put all my eggs in one basket. I do all the research. I do everything I can find, look into everything, and I put together one mock draft for everybody. So we're going to go through it. There's trades. There's a few trades. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited. Then tomorrow, there's there's a big weekend for the channel, the biggest weekend, the biggest two episode of this channel's history. I would say, tomorrow we got the 12-hour live stream. Super excited for that. A lot of friends and family coming on. So check that out. I'll have the thumbnail and everything put together by the end of the night tonight, and we'll have it scheduled in 12 hours tomorrow. We're doing 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 hours straight. It's going to be fun. A couple of hellos. We got Who Hames. What's up, man? Good to see you. Congrats on your channel. Who Hames is killing it right now. So go subscribe to his channel. We got Jason Calhoun, the Huron River Rat. What's happening? Good to see you. Emo Cowboy, always a pleasure. Good to see you. We got Steven WC. What's up, man? Das Brew Crew. How you doing? Fantasy Dog, number 5 like. Appreciate you. 12 hours of absolutely packed, spicy cheese. You betcha. It's going to be a good time. Putt Daddy, good to see you. How are you guys? Let's do it, man. I'm super excited. Let's jump right into this. This is my favorite episode of the entire calendar year. No question. We won't be doing a draft tonight. This will take too long. Well, we will be doing a draft, a real draft, a real mock draft sort of thing. But let's set the stage kind of thing. Also, apologies for the voice, man. I get similar to Emo Cowboy. I know you suffer from similar springtime. My voice is kind of hoarse. But yeah, it's how she goes. But a little behind the scenes of how I do things. So we went over that visits tracker a few weeks ago. So you can go check out that link. And that's something that I definitely use to build this mock draft. And then I also go through, I've shown this before. I do it pre-free agency and then post-free agency pre-draft, right? So I go through every single team, check out what I feel like their biggest needs are. So need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see that there. I don't even have a fifth need for the Bills, but it's probably just another offensive line depth is what I would say, something there. But I go through, and this is another tool that I use. So again, I go through every single NFL team, see what I think their needs are, use the visits tracker, everything I can find to piece together to make, a coherent mock draft, make it make sense. There's got to be reasons behind it. Not everyone's going to be right. Obviously, we know that. At least I hope we know that. Not everybody's going to be correct, right? There's definitely going to be some things that people don't agree with me on, which is perfectly fine. But let me know why. Don't just say, "Oh, Cody, you're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about." Let me know why you think that, why you disagree, whatever. More than happy to have a conversation about it. But if you haven't done the work, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, if you're just spewing hateful nonsense, then I don't know what to tell you, because I have put in the work. So yeah, more than happy to have a conversation, but make it make sense. Sorry, I'm just dealing with some windows here. They're kind of popping up all over the place and it's driving me nuts. Okay, let's do this. We're going to pull up the PFF mock draft simulator. So we got that up. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Boom. Should be all we need. So we got all 32 teams, obviously. Ourlads.com, I got popped up in another window so we can go over depth chart stuff. Make sure it makes sense what we're doing here. So let's kick it off from the top. Let's rip it. Real football hours, absolutely. This is very exciting. Hartman, good to see you. And you never know what NFL people do. Exactly. We're all going to be wrong here. We're all going to be wrong. But how wrong, how right, position-wise, am I going to be right positionally? And it's just a different player. That could be it. But let's do this. So first pick in the draft, Tennessee Titans. Nothing crazy. Everybody knows it. Cam Ward was on, what was it, Minecraft or something like that, on some whatever video game, saying Treylon Burks is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Obviously, we all know that that's not true, but it's a clear representation that he's already been told that he's the pick for the Tennessee Titans. I don't think Brian Callahan can afford to not make this pick. And not that it's entirely all of his decision, but, it's going to buy him some time realistically as the head coach of the Titans. Obviously, his first year was not great, but this will buy him a little bit of time. You got to give him some time to develop this quarterback, build around him and kind of take it from there. So number 1, Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward. It's not surprising. Everybody pretty much has the same thing, which they probably should. We all know it's going to be Cam Ward. Typically, we end up in this spot. So now it kind of opens up. We're sitting there too. We got the Cleveland Browns. There's been talks about quarterbacks. They've been doing some work on the quarterbacks. There's Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, the top 2. Realistically, in my opinion, the top 2 players in this draft are Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. And it's really not particularly close. I really do not have Cam Ward even in probably my top 10. Realistically, it's just positionally, I get it. The Titans are going to make that pick. So then it's between Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. And which direction do you go? For me, if I was actually making this pick, it would probably be Abdul Carter, if I'm being honest. Just pair him up with Myles Garrett. You have that 1-2 punch, and then just play good defense. But it sounds like, and I don't think it's a bad click regardless. I really don't think it's a bad pick either way, no matter which direction they go. But if I'm being honest, probably the number 1 all-around player in this draft is Travis Hunter. And that's where I think they go. I do think that they view him as a wide receiver first, which they've said, they've come out and said that. And I think that that's the correct way to, use Travis Hunter, use him as a wide receiver, and then bring in some defensive plays in certain packages. You're not going to be putting Travis Hunter on the outside on an island as a corner. That is not going to happen. But in like quarter sets, maybe play some nickel, stuff like that, third downs, red zone type stuff. Yeah, definitely get, Travis Hunter onto the field. So that is the direction that I think they go. They take Travis Hunter, number 2, and there you go. Lock it in. I don't think there's too many secrets or too many. I'm definitely not breaking any news here yet. And it's going to be relatively chalky, I feel like, at the top. But we'll see. I mean, it kind of starts right here. Obviously, we know the Giants are doing a lot of homework on quarterbacks, especially right now. They're doing some due diligence on a few guys late in the process. Why would they be doing that? Would they be doing that to take one at 3rd overall? Maybe. I don't think they go that route. So I don't think there's realistically, including Cam Ward, there isn't a quarterback in this draft that I would take top 5 personally. But Cam Ward's going number 1. Beyond that, I'm most certainly not taking Shedeur Sanders this high, and I would really think twice about taking Jackson Dart this high as well. So could be a trade down option, right? The Giants are sitting there at 3. Abdul Carter's sitting there staring him in the face. He's no question the number 1 player on the board right now. The best player available is not even close, and it's Abdul Carter. He's a blue chipper. He's sitting there waiting for them. Fits their scheme. Do they necessarily need him? They have Kayvon Thibodeau. They have Brian Burns. Does it make sense for them to pick Abdul Carter? Well, they're sitting there playing the Dallas Cowboys twice a season for the last 4 years, right? And Micah Parsons, who's almost a clone, Abdul Carter is almost a clone to Micah Parsons. He's been killing them for the last 4 seasons in a row. So he fits your scheme. Don't think too much about it. I don't think there might be a couple teams, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. There's one team in particular that might be, blowing up the phone a little bit, but are they going to have the ammunition? I'm not sure. So let's lock it in. Abdul Carter to the Giants. And then we'll kind of figure it out as we go. And we'll talk more about this. This isn't over yet, but we'll talk more about this. But I think that's the pick. I don't think that's breaking any ground either. Again, I think it's pretty chalky at the top, as you know, NFL drafts typically are. So I'm not going to try to get cute or do anything different, and see what we can do. So anyways, that's number 3, Abdul Carter to the Giants. Now we're to 4, the New England Patriots. Again, pretty chalky. I don't think they can afford to not take a left tackle in this class. You have to do right by Drake May. You bring him in as your number 3 pick last year. You owe it to the kid to get him some protection. Hopefully this helps your running game as well. The only way that this isn't a left tackle is if Abdul Carter's still on the board, or Travis Hunter for that matter. If Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter are on the board here for the Patriots, they sprint to the podium, take either one of those guys over a left tackle. But that's not the case, and I don't think it will be. So they make it easy on themselves. They take the number 1 tackle and the number 1 left tackle in this class, and that's Will Campbell. So people are concerned about the arm length. I guess I can understand that. Take a look at Bernard Ryman, starting left tackle for the Indianapolis Colts. Basically the same arm size and way less experience playing left tackle, and he does just fine. The football IQ for Will Campbell is off the charts. So get him in there. Don't overthink it. Plug him in at left tackle. Let's all move on. I think that that's honestly just the easiest way to go about things if we're the New England Patriots. So there you go. And Mike Vrabel's not too worried about the arm length from what we've heard, right? So if he's not concerned, I'm not concerned. We've seen other guys succeed with short arms, so I'm not too worried about it. Will Campbell will be just fine there. So that's the pick. Again, still pretty chalky, nothing too crazy. So yeah, let's keep moving on. This will get interesting as we go. Mike Green isn't too far off from Abdul Carter. People are all over the place on Mike Green. We'll get into that a little bit later. But moving on to number 5, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock. This is where things could get really interesting. Ashton Genty was born in Jacksonville. He didn't really live there very much. He lived in Europe, Italy, I believe, for his younger years, and then moved to the United States for high school to play football. So that's an option. You know, it is on the table. Is that the direction that they want to go? I'm not so sure. First year general manager, you know, James Gladstone comes in, Liam Cohen comes in. So first year, Tony Baselli's in there making some calls. Realistically, he's the one that's probably has the final say realistically in a lot of these conversations. So what's their biggest need? Let's pop over to our lads for the first time. Let's take a look at their depth chart. What are their needs? What do they need to do? Let's zoom in a little bit, right? They address the wide receiver room. I think they're fine there. I really do not think that they go wide receiver, and definitely not this high. They will probably take a wide receiver at some point, but Ted McMillan, for me, this is a little bit too high in my opinion, and it doesn't really fit what they need or want to be doing. Realistically, I think they're good to go. I've been pretty right on Parker Washington. He was mentioned as the number 2 option. I'm about 20-something% Parker Washington, so I'm pretty happy about that. Diami Brown is the deep threat, go route kind of a guy, and then Brian Thomas Jr. is your obvious number 1 wide receiver. Offensive line is in a better spot than people probably think. Walker Little can get by. Ezra Cleveland can get by. A couple years ago, Anton Harrison, the first-round pick. Patrick McCarry, very underrated. He's very versatile. He can play all over the line. Robert Hainsey comes in, follows Liam Cohen, so they should be good there. Chuma Odega has been in this league a long time. Fred Johnson been in this league a long time. Cole Van Lanen's actually been in this league for quite a while. Luke Fortner's still there. They're all right on the offensive line. So is that direction they go? I don't particularly think so. Armand Membu obviously comes to mind. I don't really think that that's the direction that they go. Tight end, I don't think that that's the way they go either. We're sitting there with Brenton Strange. He was mentioned by the coach. I think he can get the job done. I'm not too worried about Tyler Warren coming here personally. So it's the defensive side of the ball for me. And where's the biggest hole? In my opinion, it's definitely in the middle of this defensive line. And it's not even really close. You know, Trayvon Walker had a good year. Josh Hines-Allen, fantastic. They have to plug up the middle here. And it's Mason Graham. So this is, again, is long-winded to get to the answer that everybody else thinks as well. but he's almost a clone to Braden Fisk. Very, 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 very similar players to Braden Fisk and Mason Graham, who, Braden Fisk was drafted by the Rams last year. James Gladstone was part of that team that put that together. Mason Graham's an All-American. People, again, are concerned about the small arms or the short arms. Take a look at Braden Fisk's arms. Take a look at Jared Verse's arms, how short they were. And there was no concern there from the Rams side. So for me, it's an easy pick. Again, it feels a massive need. He's number 5 or 6 on Daniel Jeremiah's top 50. So that's the direction I think they go, is Mason Graham. So we haven't gotten too crazy yet. We really haven't gotten too crazy yet, but things are about to get off the rails a little bit. Tyler Warren, no, I don't think it's going to be Tyler Warren for the Jags. I really don't. Yeah, I think he's the betting favorite for sure. I think that makes the most sense, unless they get crazy and take Genty. Yeah, Genty would be the only other direction that I would see the Jags going. Realistically, I mean, I honestly can't think of any other direction that they would go. Tyler Warren, maybe, but I really don't think so. I think it's Mason Graham, and that's pretty much it. Maybe Genty, but with how deep this class is, I'd be pretty shocked if Genty goes top 5. But now we're sitting here on the clock. The Vegas Raiders, right? The number 1 spot, the number 1 betting favorite for Ashton Genty, right? But if you look at his betting odds on his line, he's pretty weighted to go to, he's pretty weighted to go to the Raiders. Beyond that, that's it. It's basically the Raiders are bust for Ashton Genty as far as, it's obviously not top 5, but top 6, right? Is that direction that they go? So let's look at this team, the leadership team with the Raiders. We got Tom Brady, who's obviously making calls, pulling strings. We got John Spytek, obviously the general manager, pulling strings. Both Michigan guys, right? They were teammates in Michigan. So do they go with the Michigan player? Who's on the board? Mason Graham would definitely be the click. If Mason Graham's there for the Raiders, I think that they go with Mason Graham. Obviously, I don't have him there. Most people don't. So what's the direction they go? They've been talking about a quarterback. They brought in Geno, but there's not a crazy amount of money owed to Geno. With his contract, they can move on from him. Shedeur Sanders is pretty heavily connected to Tom Brady, right? Armand Membu, they've talked about a little bit. Could he come in? Let's take a look at the offensive line for the Raiders. I think that they're actually okay at offensive line with Alex Kappa coming in, as long as they probably do get something done with Colton Miller, in my opinion. They probably get something done, bring him back. He's been a staple on this offensive line. They definitely need some interior. DJ Glaze was okay, and he was a rookie last year, so hopefully he progresses. Do they need to go down that road? Maybe. I think Armand Membu is probably more realistic to go to this team, and I'll just say it, than Ashton Genty. I think Armand Membu is more likely to be drafted by the Raiders than Ashton Genty. That's how I feel about it. But I don't have either of those players going to the Raiders. Who do I have the Raiders selecting? I think they kind of go off the board a little bit, and this is a different pick than I've probably seen anybody else. It's going to be Jalen Walker. So they need some help on the defense. Robert Spillane's gone. Devon Diablo is gone. This is another Micah Parsons type of a clone, right? Helps Max Crosby on third downs. He can be the off-ball linebacker in first and second down, and he's one of the better pass rushers in this class, regardless of his size. So we're going to see, John Spytek's son emancipate from the parents there. He's going to ditch the family, because I don't think it's going to be Ashton Genty. I really don't. I think it's either Armand Membu, but I think they really like Jalen Walker and the things that he can do. He's the number 5 player on Daniel Jeremiah's, prospect list, flying up draft boards. He was like, not roommates, but they with Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers and Jalen Walker drove to school, to class. They drove to practice every day together. They're very, very close. I think it makes tons of sense. Fits this team. Very different, but I think that's the direction that they go. They have to help this defense. So there you go. Jalen Walker to the Las Vegas Raiders. Moving on. We got the New York Jets on the clock, right? Again, Armand Membu. They do have a pretty big hole at right tackle. But let's dig into that. Do they have a hole at right tackle, right? Obviously, Olu Fashanu, their first round pick last year, he's a left tackle now. Perfect. Makes sense. John Simpson can definitely get the job done. And they have Josh Myers that they brought in free agency. Joe Tittman's their center. Elijah Vera Tucker's, a Pro Bowler, potential All-Pro. So their offensive line is in a really good spot, actually. And then they have Max Mitchell, who's really not that bad. He was a right tackle in college. Chukoma Okorafor comes in, right tackle as well. So I think in a pinch, they could put it together. I don't trust Carter Warren. I'm not worried about him, but I think they could keep it together with Max Mitchell and Chukwuma Okorafor. I think that they can keep the right tackle position together well enough that I don't think that's the biggest need on this team. So let's look at the coaching staff that came in, right? Aaron Glenn comes in, Tanner Engstad comes in, the offensive coordinator, both from the Detroit Lions. And then how does this team want to run this offense? That's the question we need to be asking ourselves. What do the Jets want to do on offense? And to me, it's no question. It's no secret. It's not even close. They want to run the ball. How are they going to run the ball? They bring in Andrew Beck as a fullback, right? So to me, this just screams 12 personnel, which means they need another tight end. And with the coaching staff coming from the Detroit Lions, I think it makes sense to bring in Tyler Warren. I do. I was trying to get around it because I'm not sure I completely love it. But I think it makes the most sense for how they want to play offense. 12 personnel with Jeremy Ruckert, Tyler Warren. You got Alan Lazard, who's the best run blocking wide receiver in the NFL. And then Garrett Wilson, who's going to do the best he can. But you obviously want to run to Alan Lazard's side, right? Probably the left side as well, Olu Fashanu's side, run to that side, have Alan Lazard over there, and probably Tyler Warren as well, because he's probably a little better blocker than Jeremy Ruckert is. But that's the direction that I think they go, because I think it makes the most sense for their offense. And then the Detroit Lions, old Detroit Lions coaching staff that comes over, they get their Sam Laporta, right? That's what I think they do. Perfect Kyle Brady all over again for the Jets. Yeah, I thought that they would cut Lazard as well, but if he's willing to take a $10 million pay cut or whatever it was, then I think it makes the most sense. So yeah, Bears fans are loving me. I'm not really sure why. We'll see. We'll see what I have the Bears doing. I think I have them getting a little interesting. So no trades yet. Pretty chalky until 6. I think Jalen Walker's a little off the board. I don't think many people have the Raiders going with Jalen Walker there. And then for the Jets, it's either Armand Membu and Tyler Warren. So I'm not getting too crazy yet, realistically. It's kind of a one or the other type of situation with a lot of these picks. So yeah, pretty chalky up top, but I just think that is how it's going to go. And then Jalen Walker just makes the most sense for that defense, in my opinion. And then we got Tyler Warren for the Jets. So we're sitting there at 8. The Panthers are on the board. Big issue for the Panthers. Local kid. They love him. He's from North Carolina. Like I said, Jalen Walker is gone. That's the guy that they want. Everybody's linking the Panthers to Jalen Walker, and I get it. I would be too. If Jalen Walker was still on the board, it'd be a snap pick for the Panthers. He's no longer here. So now what do you do? What do the Panthers do? Well, they have a deep board. I think everybody has a deep board beyond Jalen Walker. So what are we going to do? Pull somebody up that we don't particularly want or need? What are we going to do here? I think that the phone starts ringing and we get a trade. We got the first trade of the draft coming up right now. Who is it and what are they coming up for? So that's something you always got to pay attention to. That's why it's like, oh, they'll just trade down. They won't take him. They'll just trade down. People like to say that in comments all the time. If you're going to say that in the comments after the fact or right now live, if you're going to put it in the comments, tell me who they're trading up for and with. Who's going to give up assets to come up in the draft? Who are they trading up for? Why? And what's the team? I need to know a little more than just they'll just trade down. They'll just trade down. It is really not that easy to trade down, especially in this draft where there's not that much talent. There's really not that much top end talent where teams are going to be willing to give up a whole bunch of assets to try to get up and take whatever player we're talking about. But I think this point in the draft makes a lot of sense. So who is it and what are they trading up for? Ashton Genty's still on the board, right? We got Tet McMillan still on the board. Those are probably the two, maybe a quarterback, right? A quarterback's on the board. Wide receivers are there, but I don't think anything else really makes sense. So who's sitting there? Who wants to do what, right? I think it's got to be Ashton Genty, right? That's what we got to kind of land on. So who is it? The Bears are there. The Bears have connections to Genty. Almost everybody does, realistically. The Broncos have connections to Genty, right? Who else is going to come up to do that? I think the Dallas Cowboys pick up the phone. Jerry Jones calls Dan Morgan and says, listen here, I want Ashton Genty. Not really. He says, I want your pick. What do you want? Let's make a deal. Panthers are happy to trade down. They didn't get their guy. They're happy to trade out. The Cowboys are just sick of not having a running back. Jerry Jones does not want the FOMO of missing out on a running back like Ashton Genty. I know they had a really good meeting. Jerry Jones was holding a championship belt, for Christ's sakes, right? Ashton Genty grew up. Well, he didn't. Yeah, he grew up and he played high school football in Frisco, Texas, which is about 15 minutes away from where the Dallas Cowboys play. So local kid. And that Saquon Barkley comment kind of really sealed it for me. As in, like, Jerry Jones saw firsthand twice last year what Saquon Barkley can do. And he's sick of that. He wants his Emmitt Smith. He wants his Ezekiel Elliott, right? He wants his running back. He's about to, he's old as dirt. We all know that, right? So he wants his running back. He wants to enjoy watching his football team for the remaining years that he can do so. So what does he do? What do we trade? Obviously, the 12 pick is going. So the Cowboys trade pick 12 for pick 8. We've got picks 12, 76, and a 2024 fourth. Going to the Panthers for pick number 8. We're going to force it through. This was actually, I had this pop up. You know how it pulls up here and it's one of the teams? I had this pulled up. I put in this exact amount of capital going back, and it was 99% to be accepted. And I always look at other trades that have been made throughout history, like how much is it going to cost? And this is what probably, would get it done. Something like this. The compensation might be a little different, but that's what I think happens. The Dallas Cowboys trade up with the Carolina Panthers, and they draft Ashton Genty. Again, local kid. I think it makes a ton of sense. And Jerry Jones just doesn't want that FOMO anymore. He really doesn't. He wants a running back. Let's get our guy. He's really the last blue chip prospect in this draft. Can't miss type of a player. So that's the way I think they go. I was trying to work out Cleveland move up to this pick, but I couldn't find a value because Cleveland is missing some picks. The trade chart is super rough. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense really for Cleveland to be able to get up to the top 10. I don't think anyone can go up that far to get into the top 10. It takes way too much to try to get up there. So 4 picks, it's really not that difficult. You're giving up a 3rd round pick 76. That's quite a bit. That's a lot of, compensation realistically. So I think that would get it done. So the Cowboys trade up, they draft Ashton Genty. Now we're sitting on the board with pick number 7. The New Orleans Saints, number 7. Number 9, New Orleans Saints are on the board. This team is an absolute circus. It's an absolute mess. The entire team is a mess. New coaching staff. Derek Carr is saying, I'm injured. I'm going to have to miss the whole season. But what's really going on there with Derek Carr? Is he actually hurt? Honestly, I really don't think he's hurt at all. I really, really don't. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. He did not want to redo his contract. They asked him to redo his contract, right? And like they came to him, hey, this is what we want to do. We want to free up some cap space, blah, blah, blah. He said, no, I don't want to do that. And they said, too fucking bad. It's in your contract that we can do this whenever we want, and we're going to do it. So there you go. They did it. Then all of a sudden he comes out and says, oh man, my shoulder's super messed up. Might miss the whole season. Oh no, I don't want to be here. So again, I'm not the only one that thinks this. And we'll see what happens when the team doctors get their hands on Derek Carr and where it goes from there. But I really don't think quarterback is the way to go here. I really, really do not. And it kind of sealed it for me. I saw a clip from Nick Underhill, who's very plugged into the Saints. He said he doesn't think so either. So that sealed it for me. I really, really do not think that, number one, there's a talent worth taking here at quarterback. Number two, they're way too far away. They need to put this team together first before they can even think. They need to clear up some cap space, get this thing figured out. And the biggest problem that this team is going to have is on the defensive side of the ball. This defense is an absolute mess. Why? Because they just brought in Brandon Staley, who's going to run a completely different defense than they've ever run. So you look at their defensive ends on this team, Cam Jordan, even Chase Young, Carl Granderson, Foskey. They're all big 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 260, 70, 80, big boys. They're not outside linebackers, right? So it's going to take years. It's probably going to take at least 2 years for them to turn this defense around to where it actually makes sense for what they want to do. So is that the direction that they go? I don't know. Like that would be a good pick right here as a defensive end, or sorry, an outside linebacker, an edge rusher, right? That fits their scheme. But who's the pick? Who could they take right now? I guess there is a lot of players that they could take. You might like, Mike Green sitting there. Let's take a look at this. Mike Green, Donovan Ezeraku, these guys might fit. James Pierce might fit. That's basically it, realistically, as far as who you might take at this point in the draft. But I don't think they go down that road. So looking at the Texas Longhorns last year, Terry Joseph, the Texas defensive passing game coordinator and secondary coach, is now the Saints defensive passing game coordinator. He coached the secondaries at Texas. So what direction do I think they go? I think they take Jahdae Barron. It's a little different. Marshawn Lattimore's gone now. Paulson Adebo is gone now, right? This defense is in shambles. Get me someone that can play in this system. And Jahdae Barron, I think, can do that. So he comes in, he takes over as the number one corner on this team. He's there with Kool-Aid McKinstry, Alontae Taylor, and they can kind of keep it together on the back end with Tyrann Mathieu, hopefully, until they can turn around the front side of that defense, because it is going to take probably 2 years before they can get the actual players that they need to be in this defense. So they get a guy that they're familiar with. It's a little maybe early for this, but no one wants to trade up. There's no one left to trade up for, realistically, in my opinion. It's Ashton Genty and then, whoever else. So I wanted to touch on this as well. Like looking at this draft class, the talent is so close. It's so close. There's probably maybe 10 players in this entire draft that teams that have a first round grade on. And then the second round grade, the third round grade, there's probably like 60, 80 players in that range that all have like a second or third round grade. So it's very, 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 very close for me as far as talent is concerned. And there's actually quite a bit of depth at a lot of different positions where the talent is extremely negligible almost. It's very, very tight. So character concerns, character issues, issues in college, things like that. We'll get into that and we'll talk about that a little bit. But I think that's going to be the biggest differentiator in this draft is like, who's more safe? Is because skill value, the skill is right here. It's 99 to 98. It's very, very close. There's not a huge difference. So if there's a guy that can fit our scheme just as well, but he's a much better person and has his head on his shoulders a little bit better, let's go with that guy. So that's kind of what I think the theme of this whole draft might be. Moving on, we're there at 10th overall now. The Bears are on the board. They, didn't get Ashton Genty, obviously. The Cowboys traded up to get ahead of the Bears and take Ashton Genty. And the Saints. The Saints have been heavily linked to Genty as well. So that's another reason why the Cowboys move up ahead of those two teams. They take Ashton Genty. What do the Bears want to do? Looking at their team, looking at their needs, they don't have a lot of needs. They did a lot of good things in free agency to shore up this team. So looking at the interior of the offensive line, Joe Thuney, Drew Dalman, Jonah Jackson, that is phenomenal. Braxton Jones, I really have no clue why people continue to want to replace Braxton Jones. He is very, very, very good as a left tackle in the NFL. There's no need to draft a tackle for the Bears, in my opinion. Kieran Emigagi, hopefully I didn't butcher that name. He, third round pick last year. He's a guy that can continue to develop. Ryan Bates comes over from Buffalo. He's another guy that can play in the interior there. So I really don't think that there's a need at all on the offensive line. Excuse me, I had to sneeze there. So I don't think there's a need at all for the offensive line. Honestly, I really don't know why people continue to want to replace Braxton Jones. Go look at the numbers. It does not make any sense. He's very, very quality. So now the offensive line is in a fantastic spot. They're good, in my opinion, at tight end. They're good at wide receiver for me. They could look at a receiver with their 2 second-round picks. I think that they probably should look at probably a slot receiver with one of their 2 early second-round picks. And then obviously running back is a huge need. So do they want to go with Omarion Hampton here? Personally, I don't think so. It's too deep of a class. Let's just cut it off there. That's not who I have them picking here. It's just too deep of a class. I don't think 10th overall is a place that you want to be taking Omarion Hampton in this draft. So I don't think that's the direction that they go. Let's look at the defense. The defense is in a great spot, in a very good spot. I bet this team to win the division. I bet on the Bears to win this division. So, and with this draft, I think it can put them over the edge, and I'll feel even better about that pick. So what do I think this team needs? They need some help on the defensive line. They need help in the interior, and they need to get Montez Sweat a fucking running mate for once. Get him a guy that can help him out on the other side of the football. Dayo Odeangbo comes in from the Colts. He's good. He can help. Austin Booker is a little undersized, 5th-round pick last year. He can help out. Dominique Robinson, same thing. He can help out, 5th-round pick. But they need a guy to come in and be a difference maker on this defensive line and help Montez Sweat get the job done. Now, who is that going to be? It's got to be a proper defensive end, right? It's not an edge rusher. It's not, Donovan Ezeraku type of a guy, right? So who do I think it is? I think it's Michael Williams. Underrated guy. I think he's one of the better defensive end prospects in this class. For some reason, he's kind of getting overlooked a little bit. Georgia guy. We've all seen what the Philadelphia Eagles have been doing. It works for them. The Bears want to get there, make it make sense. Bring in Michael Williams on the other side. Let's get it done. Help out the defense. Moving on. I think that's a great pick. I think it makes tons of sense, actually. So now we're sitting on the board with the San Francisco 49ers. What do they want to do? Well, let's take a look. How do the 49ers play offense, team? How do the 49ers play offense? I think we all know. They need to run the ball. They need to be able to run the ball, right? So what does that require? A pretty quality offensive line, correct? So this offensive line is good. It is a good offensive line. Like, I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to argue that. It's a very good, it's a very quality offensive line. Right now, is it going to stay that way? I don't know. What does this team need to do? Right? So Trent Williams is 37 years old. He missed 7 games last year, and he hasn't played a full season since 2013. That's a little ridiculous. That's a little crazy. He's certainly not going to play forever, and he could completely fall off a cliff after this season, or even, during this season. Colton McKevitz is there, playing right tackle right now. He did a great job last year, but he can kind of move around. You got Dominic Pooney, again, another guy can kind of move around. Jake Brendel, Ben Barch, Matt Hennessy. Those guys can kind of handle center and one of the guard spots probably. But what makes the most sense I think the defensive line would make some sense for this team. Nick Bosa is obviously there. Yeturgos Matos, a former first-round pick. Drake Jackson's a second-round pick for this team. But it would be the interior for me. So the interior of this defensive line can make some sense. Do I think they go down that road? I really don't. I think that they think they can get by, and it's a very deep class at the interior defensive line and for the edge rusher position. So where is it not exceptionally deep, and who's sitting there staring them in the face? It's Armand Membu. Makes too much sense. He's said that he's models his game a little bit after Trent Williams, right? So he can go in there, learn for a year from Trent Williams, potentially have to play that position. Dominic Pooney can play left tackle as well if need be. My point is you can find a place. And if it's just right tackle, you start Armand Membu at right tackle and Colton McKevitz either becomes your swing tackle or moves over to left guard, something like that. That's just fine. You just need to make sure that you get this offensive line in a good spot. And I think they can do that. And with him just sitting there waiting to be picked makes too much sense. They sprint up to the podium and they take Armand Membu. Moving on. Back end of this trade, right? This is where the Dallas Cowboys traded up. Carolina Panthers are on the clock. What do? They didn't get Jalen Walker, right? They didn't get that edge rusher that they need. And they do need an edge rusher horribly bad. Their team is in a bad state as far as edge rusher. Jadeveon Clowney is there. They brought in Patrick Jones II, I believe, that, he can help out, but he's not going to be, your guy. So that could definitely be the route that they go down. Patrick Jones, yeah, DJ Wan, I'm sure. There's a couple kind of role players there. Jadeveon Clowney. They really desperately need some edge rushers. Up the middle, they're good. Derek Brown's fantastic. Tershawn Wharton comes over from the Chiefs. He's very good. Bobby Brown's good. Shai Tuttle, Ashawn Robinson. They have some depth there. They're good on the defensive line. They need some edge rushers. They do need a linebacker. So again, if Jalen Walker's there, they're taking Jalen Walker, no question. I think we can all agree on that. I think they need some help on the back end of the defense as well. They could use the safety. So again, this is another reason why they're happy to trade back, because they need talent. They need some players. But what else do they need? I think that Dave Canales is sitting there and he says, I see a lot of Mike Evans in Teteroa McMillan. We have Adam Thielen, who's probably on his last contract, his last year in the league. He probably retires after this year. Xavier Legette is a bit of an unknown still, former first-round pick, but he's a little bit of an unknown. And then Jalen Coker, he looked good in flashes, but he's still an undrafted free agent wide receiver. So we don't know exactly what we're going to get out of Coker. And again, I think he just sees too much Mike Evans in Teteroa McMillan. And I do too, as to be honest with you, I see it as well. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And you want to keep that momentum going with Bryce Young. He showed some improvement last year. So you want to keep that momentum up. So let's get him some help on offense. The offensive line is okay. We got to work on that defense later in the draft. But I just think Tet McMillan makes too much sense for this offense and for what, Dave Canales is looking for. So they trade back and they're still able to get their guy. You could honestly argue that these are just swapped. And I don't particularly think the Panthers take Genty there, but you could definitely say Tet McMillan goes to the Cowboys at 12. That could happen as well. But this is kind of the way I see it going. So there you go. And it makes sense for the Panthers to trade back a little bit, get themselves some more picks, create some depth, create some competition, and make their team a little bit better. So the Miami Dolphins are on the clock at 13. Kyle Williams, 101. Yeah, you betcha, man. So the Miami Dolphins are on the clock. What are they after, right? How are they looking? We've got, get out of here. We've got Jalen Ramsey asking for a trade now, right? So let's look at this defense. Defense is going to be a bad spot if Jalen Ramsey is no longer on this team. Melifonwu, sure. We got Ashton Davis, who has trouble staying on the field, gets injured pretty often. Cam Smith, second-round pick. We got Storm Duck, best name in the NFL, but not exactly, one of the best players in the NFL. Artie Burns is still there. Cool. They need some help on the back end of this defense. They need some help on the front end of this defense. Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips both can't particularly stay healthy. They're having issues with it. Chop Robinson's there. That's good. Mohamed Kamara's there. They have some depth at edge rusher, but they could still use some help. Interior linebacker, like inside linebackers in a good spot. Willie Gay, KJ Britt, Channing Tindall's still there. So they have a lot of depth for linebacker. They're in a good spot there. They could definitely use some help on the defensive line. What I'm getting at is there's a shit ton of holes on this defense. So is that something that you want to invest in? I don't know. For me, I look at this offense and they're still in a pretty good spot. They're not that much different than they were 2 years ago when they were one of the best offenses in the NFL. They're not too much different. I guess you could even maybe say they're a tiny bit better potentially in some places. Teron Armstead retired, right? That was a big issue. Patrick Paul can potentially play left tackle for this team. Jackson Carman, former Bengal, he can do some good things. Larry Borum comes over from the Bears. He's a quality swing tackle. I don't think this offensive line is in as bad of a spot as people think, but let's work on a strength and keep a strength, right? That's kind of the way I look at this. You want to be good at something. If you're the Dolphins, you want to be good at something. And what they're closer and what they're better at is offense. So let's invest in the offense. And how are they going to do that? For me, it is the offensive line. And it's somebody that I know they like. Kelvin Banks is who it's going to be. I know they like him. They play the same scheme as he did in Texas. It's just different verbiage. He met with Mike McDaniel. They talk about that. I just think it makes tons of sense. All he has to do is come in and learn the terminology. That's it. And then you basically just create competition, which is always the way to go. Create competition, have a battle. It's basically Patrick Paul versus Kelvin Banks. Winner's the left tackle, loser's the left guard. Liam Eichenberg ain't it, that's for sure. Aaron Brewer's fine at center. James Daniels hopefully comes back. I think it was a torn Achilles, I believe, for James Daniels. Hopefully he comes back healthy. You got Larry Borum there. You got Jackson Carman. But winner gets left tackle, loser gets left guard. And let's have the best possible 5 at our offensive line that we can get. And then let's be good at something. And let's be good on offense. That's what I think that the Dolphins need to do. So pick is in, Kelvin Banks. Moving on to pick number 14, we've got the Indianapolis Colts. So a lot of people link tight end, which I can understand, I think it would make a lot more sense to go with Tyler Warren. If Tyler Warren were on the board still for the Colts, I think they could go down that road. Does Colston Loveland necessarily make sense for this team? Not for me personally. Like if you had a better blocking tight end, not that Colston Loveland's horrible as a blocker, he's not, but he's not Tyler Warren either. So what do? People look at the offensive line. I actually think they have a very good offensive line. I know they like Matt Goncalves, and I know they like Tanner Bortolini. They're both good prospects. They should be just fine on the offensive line. Yes, they can invest in it, but a little bit later in the draft. I don't think they need to go down that road with their first pick. Wide receivers are obviously in a fantastic position. All 3 of these wide receivers, I believe off the top of my head, all had 800 plus receiving yards. So do you really want to invest a first-round pick in another offensive weapon when you can't even take advantage of all of your current offensive weapons? I just don't think it makes tons of sense to sink that draft capital into the offense. I think they need to look at the defensive side of the ball here. There's tons of holes. They could definitely use a linebacker. So Jihad Campbell, maybe. Defensive line, maybe. Samson Ebukam, tweener. So I don't think he's a defensive end. That's for sure. Liatu Latu was their first round pick last year. Kwity Paye, first round pick in 2021. What do we know about Chris Ballard? We know for a fact that Chris Ballard loves the freak athletes. He loves him some freak athletes. Kwity Paye is still there. He's on the final year of his rookie contract. So is Tyquan Lewis. And we just saw him, Samson Ebukam there, right? If Warren's still on the board, they click him, no problem. That makes sense. I don't think Loveland makes a lot of sense, like I just said. I just don't think it would make sense for the draft capital and the production. So where do they go? I think they take the freakish number one freak athlete in this entire draft. I think he's going to go higher than people think, just based off of his combine and his measurables. The number one RAS score at the defensive end position or edge rusher position in the history of the NFL or the history of keeping RAS score, Shamar Stewart. That's where I think they go. So they can move him around, right? You got Kwity Paye, you got Liatu Latu, you got so basically what I'm getting at is imagine this. It's 3rd and 8. It's 3rd and 8. You're facing the Colts. They got Kwity Paye on one side, Liatu Latu on one side. They got DeForest Buckner in the middle, and right beside DeForest Buckner, they got Shamar Stewart coming at you. That's pretty dangerous. That is pretty deadly. And then you can move him around. That's what I like the most about Shamar Stewart is you can move him around that defensive line. He can do a lot of different things, and he is an absolute freak athlete. You can argue the production. I get it. There wasn't a lot of production there. I know that. I hear you. But in my opinion, he was probably misused a little bit at Texas A&M, and he's not the only one at Texas A&M that was misused on that defense, in my opinion. And we'll get to the other guy in a little bit later in this draft. But I think that they misused some of their players. I think this is more of a Texas A&M thing than it is some of the defensive players for the Aggies. So Shamar Stewart pick is in. That's the direction I think that they go. So what do we got in the chat? I believe the Titans are taking Kyle Williams at 35, reuniting with Cam Ward. That'd be sweet. I wouldn't mind that. Before Matt Harmon was on Twitter saying that Kyle Williams goes before Luther Burden, guess who said it first? This guy right here. The night before on Pat's stream on Monday. That's Dark Wings kid. Nick, come on down. All right. Pick number 15. The Atlanta Falcons. Pretty much everybody, because I get it. Oh man, what's Raheem Morris? Because Raheem Morris went to the Marshall Pro Day, obviously to see Mike Green, right? So that's theoretically the click. Everybody's linking Mike Green to the Falcons. I get it. I understand why, but we all, how many years in a row have we seen the Falcons do something completely different that everybody thinks they're going to do? 2 years ago, it was, oh man, who was the corner that they were taking? There was a corner that they were taking. They didn't take him. The year Bijan was drafted, they were never taking Bijan. They took Bijan. Last year, Michael Penix. No one had the Falcons taking Michael Penix, right? So let's stop just saying that the Falcons are going to do X, Y, and Z because they aren't doing it. They haven't done it in the last 3-4 years. The consensus, everybody thinks that that's who's going where, right? And it's always the Falcons, always. So what do I think they do? Let's take a look at their draft capital. They have 5 picks, 15, 46, 118, 218, and 242. Not a lot of draft capital. And there's quite a few needs on this team. There's a lot of holes, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There's a hole in the middle at center, right? They could use a wide receiver. There's a lot of holes on this team. So how can they add more draft capital, improve their team, and how can they accomplish this at the same time, right? Because that's kind of what they want to do, right? Geez, I got to take some allergy medication maybe. So how do they do that? How do they improve their team and add draft capital? Pretty difficult to do that. What could a team want to trade up for? This is obviously a trade down spot. I agree with a lot of people. A lot of people see this as a trade down spot. I agree. I very much agree that this could be a spot to trade down, get assets, and improve your team. Who's trading up and for what? That's what we always have to ask. Who is trading up and what are they trading up for? So I'm going to paint a picture for you here. There's a team going to be trading up here. And it's the New York Giants. The New York Giants are going to be trading up here. Okay, for what? What do the New York Giants want to trade up for? They have pick 34, pick 65, pick 99, 105, 54. They got a lot of stuff here, right? What are they going to be trading up for? I don't think it's any secret that they put in a lot of work on quarterbacks, right? They put a lot of work into quarterbacks. Right now, they're looking at Shedeur Sanders again. They're looking at, I think it's Milroe and Shuck. They've put in a lot of work with, Jackson Dart, with everybody. Every quarterback in this class, the Giants have put a lot of work into. They signed Russell Wilson. They signed, Jameis Winston. What is this all pointing to, right? So I think they trade up. They do picks 34. 105. And the Falcons are giving up 15. Is that enough? No, that's not enough. So what are the Falcons after? We all know that the Falcons want, an edge rusher. They need some help on the defensive line. They need an edge rusher. The Giants just picked number 3. Who'd they pick? Abdul Carter. What do they have a bit of an excess now of? They got Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. They're not trading Brian Burns' contract. That's not going to happen. Kayvon Thibodeau has been a bit of a distraction for this team, a little bit. It's a bit of an issue. They might not extend the fifth-year option to Kayvon Thibodeau, right? So you've already replaced him with Abdul Carter, who might just be better than him. And now you have a value here. You have an asset that you can move and get something that you need and you want for this team. So that's something I think that the Giants do. They call up the Falcons. They say, hey, we got some extra picks for you. We have one extra pick. You got to move down this draft. We'll get you pick 105, and we're going to trade you Kayvon Thibodeau to take care of your edge rusher issues that you have. The Falcons say, hell yeah, let's make that happen. So that's what they do. Trade goes down. Giants come up. Kayvon Thibodeau is an Atlanta Falcon, and the Giants are at 15. What are they trading up for? So they're doing all this work on quarterbacks, right? I think it's a quarterback. I think obviously that has to be what they're trading up for, right? I think I've made that pretty obvious, which is fine. But who's it going to be? You might think Shedeur Sanders, right? That's fair. You could say Shedeur Sanders, but let's dig into this. So Brian Daboll, head coach, obviously on the hot seat. We all know that. They need a quarterback. They're throwing Jameis Winston. They're throwing Russell Wilson, cheap contracts. Russell Wilson's getting $14 million. That's not even barely starters money, right? So he's not the future. He's just a body, okay? Brian Daboll has quite literally looked through his history. Go back and look through his history. I forgot I was going to write down the names of the quarterbacks that he's had. It's horrible outside of Josh Allen, right? Daboll has literally never had his own quarterback except for the year that he had Josh Allen, and he left 2 years into Josh Allen's career, right? Daboll has never had his own quarterback throughout his entire career. He was the offensive coordinator when they drafted Josh Allen. Joe Sheehan was the assistant general manager in Buffalo when they drafted, again, Josh Allen. So I'm going to connect a lot of dots here. So I would suggest pay attention. Brian Daboll took over at Alabama as the offensive coordinator. Who did he take over from? Lane Kiffin. So where does Lane Kiffin coach now? If you don't know, it's Ole Miss. There's a ton of connection with Jackson Dart and the New York Giants. They didn't meet with him recently. To me, that's actually a good thing. To me, they're saying, man, we love Jackson Dart. Do we like these other guys more? Maybe we don't. Let's take another look at Shedeur. Let's take another look at whatever Milroe. Let's take a look at these other guys. Are we positive that we like Jackson Dart this much? Let's take a look into them again. They didn't meet with Jackson Dart again. To me, that's actually not a bad thing. So there's tons of connection between Jackson Dart with the pro day, with visits, all that kind of stuff with the Giants. Let's dig into it more. Who is their all-time franchise quarterback with the Giants? Eli Manning. Where did Eli Manning go to school? Ole Miss. Who beat all of Eli Manning's records at Ole Miss? Jackson Dart, right? The Giants, what have they done in drafts in relatively recent history, right? The Giants, I don't know if people know this, but the Giants drafted 3 straight Senior Bowl MVPs, all at the quarterback position. 3 straight. Davis Webb, Kyle Lauletta, and our favorite Daniel Jones were all Senior Bowl MVPs. They all got drafted by the Giants. Now, Jackson Dart was not the Senior Bowl MVP, but he was looking extremely good to be, and he might have been if, Jack Besh didn't do what he did. There was a lot of emotion behind that. He deserved it. He got it. But Jackson Dart had a very, very good Senior Bowl. What else with the Senior Bowl? Who was the head coach for that team? Actually, his team. Who was the head coach? Mike Kafka. Who's Mike Kafka? The offensive coordinator for the New York Giants. What else do we got? He won't be there for him. He will not be there for him in the second round. I think he's absolutely a first-round pick. So they're going to have to trade up somewhere. And then who are they able to trade up with? Realistically, it's not going to be the Cardinals, most likely, maybe. It's not the Bengals because they don't do stuff like that. I wish they did. It's not the Seahawks because they have tons of capital. They want to use their picks. They got to get ahead of the Steelers, right? So that's the only spot that they can really do it, especially with Kayvon Thibodeau being a bit of a luxury asset right now. So they trade up to 15, and the Giants draft Jackson Dart. That's what I think happens. Fairly, relatively, you can squint your eyes and see a little bit of Josh Allen in Jackson Dart, right? Plus everything that I just laid out there, hopefully it makes sense. Connected a lot of dots to make that happen. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he's the second best quarterback in this draft as far as like overall potential. You don't have to start him right away. Really, the only quarterback that I would be even remotely comfortable starting right away would be Cam Ward, and I'm not particularly comfortable starting him right away either. But you don't have to start Jackson Dart right away. He can sit there, hold the clipboard, and Russell Wilson can do his thing. You can bring in Jackson Dart at some point throughout the season, towards the end of the season, and he's your quarterback of the future. Then you this team, the staff of Dable and Shane have done everything they can to be successful. So they're going to buy themselves some time, hopefully. And again, this franchise is going to be pretty connected to Ole Miss, to Lane Kiffin, to Eli Manning, to Jackson Dart. I think it just makes tons of sense. So that's the way I think they go. Jackson Dart to the Giants, pick 15 in a massive trade, big time news. There you go. Moving on. That was a long one. Pick 16. We got the Arizona Cardinals on the clock. Where are they going to go? I think wide receiver is a massive need for them. Not even listed, which is kind of crazy. I think wide receiver is a massive need. I think defensive line is a massive need, which they do have here. What direction do they go? I mean, I think wide receiver could be on the board. If it's a wide receiver, I think it's Matthew Golden that goes here. I think that's the wide receiver that would make the most sense. Obviously, a lot of people think he's the number 2 wide receiver in this class. I get it. But that's not the direction that I think they go. There are some concerns with this player, some off the field, some character concerns, but he might be the number 1 tackle in this class. And it's Josh Simmons. That's the direction I think that they go. Why? So it'll be the 3rd straight year that they drafted an Ohio State Buckeye in the first round, right? Marvin Harrison Jr., Paris Johnson Jr., right? Then they bring in Josh Simmons. Jonah Williams, their right tackle currently, he's in the final year of their contract. So, Josh Simmons, who's played right tackle very well, I might add, has played right tackle. He might be the right tackle of their future, right? Then you got your bookend tackles, Paris Johnson, Josh Simmons. But until then, he's also recovering from an ACL, right? So until then, kick him into guard, move Evan Brown over, or Evan Brown stays there, right guard, left guard, whatever it is. Josh Simmons finds a spot to start on this team, and then he's the right tackle of the future. That's kind of what I see happening here. I think it makes the most sense, and there you go. And I think that could be a bit of a steal. I know that there's smoke. I don't think it's entirely I really don't think it's likely, but there's a little bit of smoke between the New England Patriots and Josh Simmons at pick number 4, which I really don't expect to happen, but there is some smoke there. So I'm not the only one that thinks that he could be the number 1 tackle in this class. And again, he could be that bookend tackle of the future. You got your 2 guys and you're kind of laughing. So that's the direction I think that the Cardinals go. Now we got the Bengals, my Cincinnati Bengals sitting on the clock. What direction do they go? I'll tell you right now, the Bengals will not be trading. They won't be trading in, up, down, nothing. They won't trade up. They won't trade down. They will stick. They will pick. It's really annoying. It is what it is. They never trade. They just stick. They pick. It's good times being a Bengals fan sometimes. So they're going to pick here. There's not going to be any movement. What direction do they go? No question, it has to be defense. I don't think that's breaking any ground. I've been saying on this channel for months that it is going to be defensive line or a corner, not a safety, a corner or defensive line. One of those 2, and that's that. So who do we have here? We've got Walter Nolan. A lot of connection there, actually. We've got potentially Mike Green, I suppose. We've got Will Johnson. We've got Ezraku. We've got Kenneth Grant, who's been connected to the Bengals a fair amount. That's actually a pretty good fit. But do I think they go down that road? I really don't. Jackson McKinley and Chris Jenkins were both 2nd and 3rd round picks last year on the defensive line. They brought in TJ Slayton, BJ Hill's still there. Do I think they go down that road in the 1st round? I don't particularly think that they do. But let's look through the history of the Cincinnati Bengals drafts, right? What have they done in the last few years? Well, the Bengals have drafted 5 Michigan Wolverines in the last 4 drafts, and the last 3 years in a row, they've drafted a defensive player from the Michigan Wolverines. In 2024, it was Chris Jenkins in the 2nd round. In 2023, it was DJ Turner in the 2nd round. In 2022, it was Dax Hill in the 1st round. So I'm looking at Will Johnson right here. I think that makes tons of sense. He was the defensive player of the game, MVP, the defensive MVP in the national championship game when the Wolverines won the national championship. They need a corner. He fits with what Al Golden wants to do. Bit of a ball hawk guy, had a bit of a rough pro day, but he shouldn't have probably been doing anything. I don't think he's fully healthy quite yet. So I think he was kind of forcing it. And ultimately, I think it's going to hurt his draft capital. Or he didn't run the 40, which, but his I think it was his short shuttle was way higher than it should have been. But I think the Bengals I know the Bengals have overlooked stuff like that in the past, especially 40 times. That's not a big deal for the Bengals. We've overlooked that time and time again. So I think they just say, hey, the Michigan Wolverines are a fantastic program. This is one of the best players on that team. Defensive MVP when they won a national championship. He's good enough to play on our team. Let's go. Will Johnson, come on down. So that's the direction I think my Bengals go. Do I love it? Yeah, I thought I did before the pro day. I would have loved it if they got Will Johnson before the pro day. I just hope that he wasn't all the way healthy, and that's the guy that they end up getting there. So let's go with that. What do we got here? A couple hellos. Fantasy Dog Pound, good to see you. We got Steph Meller, good to see you. Whack the like button, appreciate it. Ben Haskell coming in. Anthony, how you doing? This is an outside the box trade that feels plausible. I think it makes sense. I'm assuming you're talking about the Giants trade. I think that makes tons of sense. They have another asset there. We've got Walter Nolan to the Seattle Seahawks. We'll see. They're up right now. We'll see. Tyler, not sure what we're chatting about over here. What up? Shut up. Will Johnson, come on down. Yeah, you betcha. You betcha. Makes tons of sense. I think I laid it out, kind of gave it away. So here we are. Is it Walter Nolan with the Seattle Seahawks? I don't know. Let's take a look. What do I think that they do? So let's look at this offense first and foremost, because they desperately need some interior offensive linemen here. Josh Jones comes in. He can be your swing tackle. There's nothing wrong with him as your swing. Oluwatimi, I think he's going to be a good center. I'm not worried about center for the Seahawks. I'm not worried about the tackle positions, and they got a good swing in there now as well. So that's wonderful. They need some guard help, no question. So they definitely need a left and right guard, in my opinion. Are they going to go down that road? Probably not, honestly. In the first round, you're not taking a guard. I really, really don't expect that to happen. Wide receiver, I guess, could be on the board, but nobody particularly makes sense to me here. Tight end doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So let's look at the defense. That's where I think that they want to focus. Why? Mike McDonald, defensive coach, right? What does he want? What does he need? Kobe Bryant's actually more of a corner. He's not, I wouldn't call him a free safety. He might play a little nickel, maybe play some free safety, but I would call Kobe Bryant a cornerback, not a safety. So Josh Jobe, not necessarily your starter. Reek Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, that looks great. What did Mike McDonald have with the Ravens that he does not have now with the Seahawks? For me, it's someone that came in and just absolutely wrecked the combine. There's tons of connections there with visits and everything like that. I think they go with Nick Emenwari. I think that's Kyle Hamilton, but faster. 6'3", 220, 230, 225 to 230, 227 is what he weighed in at the combine. 4.3 speed. That's crazy. All-American. I'm not sure why he's being kind of overlooked as the number 2 safety in this class. I think he's the number 1 safety. So he comes in, and that's the Kyle Hamilton kind of captain of the back end of this defense, but faster, bunch faster. So that's the direction I think they go. Is the most connection I could make. And then with, all of the picks that they have 5 total picks inside the top 100. That's crazy. So they have 4 more. They have picks 50 and 52. Right there is where they can address the offensive line or the defensive line if they want to go down that road. But I think that at picks 50 and 52, they address the interior of the offensive line. Maybe not both picks, but definitely one of them. But I think it's Nick Emenwari here for the Seahawks. I think that makes the most sense for that defense and for what Mike McDonald. I always get Mike McDonald. That's what he wants to do. I think there's only one pick for the Seahawks. I don't think you had Nick Emenwari there, I would imagine, but Nick Johnson would be, or Will Johnson would be fantastic, I think, for the Bengals as well. So we'll see how that goes. But let me know who you thought the Seahawks were taking, because there's not a lot of connection I could make, if I'm being honest. And I think Nick Emenwari makes a ton of sense. Tons of sense. So we're at the Buccaneers. What are the Buccaneers looking at doing? There's really not a lot of holes on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, completely, all of the team. It's pretty crazy how in a great spot the Buccaneers are. The wide receivers in a great spot, getting a little bit older, obviously, with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, definitely getting a little older, but they're still in a good spot. No concerns. Offensive line is in a really good spot. They could definitely use some depth. Don't get me wrong. Charlie Heck, could be your swing tackle kind of a guy, but they definitely need a little depth. Don't get me wrong on the offensive line, but not something you need to address in the first round, in my opinion. Tight end, they're in a good spot. Running back, they're obviously in a good spot. So to me, it has to be on the defensive side of the ball for their first round pick if they're going to sink in that kind of an asset. Hassan Reddick comes in. That's a fantastic get. Yaya Diaby's still there. Chris Braswell was a second-round pick last year. Anthony Nelson's good for like 5 sacks. He can do some good stuff. So I don't think an edge rusher really makes a crazy amount of sense. Oh, I got a sneeze coming again. Jeez. We were looking for a nose to keep Murphy in his natural position. Yeah. Yep. I think you can get that in the second round, though. Like a nose tackle. You really want to take a nose tackle in the first round? I don't particularly. All you're looking for is a big space eater, right? So I don't think that's a first round pick, realistically. At Diamond Trucking LLC. Who is we? I'm not sure what that means. Who aims, but we'll roll with it. So what are the Buccaneers going to do? What are they looking for? I think safety is definitely on the board. Antoine Winfield. Christian Isian's more of a nickel corner. He's not necessarily a safety. I guess you get by as your free safety, but I think that's definitely on the board. But for me, it's got to be linebacker. I'm not the only one linking, Jihad Campbell. I think that makes the most sense for the Bucs. Levante David's getting older. He's not going to play forever. He can come in. Campbell can come in, learn from Levante David, and take over as the leader of this defense. Hopefully, he's the best player available as well. So there are some other needs, but I think that's the most pressing need for this defense, realistically. And I think regardless, the pick has to be on defense. And it'd either be like, maybe Malachi Starks as a safety, maybe another corner potentially, but I think the best player available in a position of need is linebacker, and it's Jihad Campbell. I just think that makes the most sense for them. So that's the way they go. We're at 20. Let's do a quick roll call here. We got first overall, Cam Ward. Second overall, Travis Hunter. Number 3, Abdul Carter. Will Campbell, number 4 to the Patriots. Mason Graham to the Jags. All pretty chalk. I get that. That's all chalk. I'm not trying to get cute, not trying to get different and force things in that don't make sense. I think all that makes sense. Let's move on. Jalen Walker, first bit of a surprise that we have there with the Raiders, 6th overall. 7th overall, we got Tyler Warren to the Jets. The Cowboys trade up with the Carolina Panthers at 8th overall, and they select Ashton Genty. Jahdae Barron, corner to the Saints at 9. Michael Williams, number 10 to the Bears. Armand Membu sitting there waiting for the 49ers. They sprint to the podium and pick Membu. Tedero McMillan in the trade back for the Panthers goes to the Panthers at 12. Kelvin Banks Jr. to the Miami Dolphins at 13. We got Shamar Stewart to the Colts at 14. Big surprise, big trade up. Kayvon Thibodeau gets traded to the Atlanta Falcons with a package. Giants trade up and select Jackson Dart. Josh Simmons to the Arizona Cardinals. We got Will Johnson to the Cincinnati Bengals at 17. Nick Emenwari to the Seahawks at 18, and then Jihad Campbell at 19 to the Bucs. All right, we got the Broncos on the board, on the clock, ready to pick. Where do they go? What are they looking at? Honestly, the biggest need, period, for the Broncos is at running back. It is. They really don't have a lot of needs. I think that they could use another corner on the other side of Patrick Surtain. They led the league in sacks last year, so they should be all right in that regard. I think it's running back. I'm not going to make people wait too long. I do have them picking a running back. Is it Hampton that everybody has linked to the Broncos? I don't think it is. They just brought him in recently. I think it's Trevion Henderson. To me, he just fits more what Sean Payton wants to do on offense. We know that Sean Payton's been looking for this joker role that's typically either a tight end or a running back. More often than not, it's a running back. It was Alvin Kamara for years. It was Jimmy Graham for a little bit. I think he's made no secret how he likes to run his backfield as far as Sean Payton is concerned, with that thunder and lightning kind of tandem, those two options. And they've got Audric Estime there, who I think is Mark Ingram. He can definitely be that thunder piece, that goal line back. And then you have Trevion Henderson, who can split out wide into the slot, whatever you need him to do. He's a mismatch nightmare. He's got game-breaking home run speed. He just fits, to me, a lot more what this offense wants to do and rotate their running backs in and out. It's literally what he did in college. And now with some visit connection, now it makes more sense to me that Henderson could be the pick here. And I think that's the direction that they go. They get their kind of joker, and Trevion Henderson gets drafted by the Denver Broncos. So moving on. Pittsburgh Steelers, pick 21. Looking at their draft capital, they don't pick again until 83. They don't have a second round pick. That's a bit of an issue for the Steelers. Could they trade down? I suppose. Yep, they probably could. But who's trading up for what? Right? There hasn't been much for edge rusher off the board since Shamar Stewart here. And before that, Michael Williams, I suppose you could say, Jalen Walker, Abdul Carter. There's a lot of guys on the board here. We've got Mike Green. We've got Donovan Ezeraku still there. James Pierce is still there. There's definitely some edge rushers. Nick Skirton's there. Landon Jackson. There's some edge rushers there that they could go with. Do I think they go down that road? No, I do not. I do think I do not think maybe if Jackson Dart's still on the board, but I do not think that quarterback is the selection for the Steelers. I said it before. I'll say it again. I think the Steelers are perfectly fine. I don't think they're scared to go into the season with Mason Rudolph and some rookie, a rookie like a Will Howard that I know they like. I know they like Will Howard. But is that the selection in the first round? Absolutely not. Shedeur Sanders might be the only quarterback worth taking around here. I don't think he is even here personally. But I really do not expect the Steelers to select Shedeur Sanders. So I do not think it's quarterback. And if it's not quarterback, then what's the direction that they go? I think that they have to turn over. They have to turn over this defense. They have to. TJ Watt is even 31 years old, and he's going to be looking for a record-breaking contract. Cam Hayward is not going to live forever. Keanu Benton came in last year. He's good. He can get the job done. Isaiah Loudermilk ain't it. He is not that guy. They need to turn this defense over. And how do they do that? I think it's a guy who says that he replicates his game after Cam Hayward, right? I see this pick as a very similar to how the Philadelphia Eagles handled their center position with Cam Jurgens coming in, being the pick, the selection of Jason Kelce, right? Who is that for Cam Hayward? For me, and it's a guy that has said he models his game after Cam Hayward, came in for a visit. I think it makes tons of sense. It's Derek Harmon. That's the direction I think they go. I really don't think that they can take a running back here. I think the Steelers absolutely draft a running back. Don't get me wrong, but I really don't think they can do it in the first round when they don't make another selection until 83. And it's very highly likely that that could be a quarterback. So they're not going running back, quarterback. That is never going to happen for the Steelers. So this is the direction I think they go. He starts right away, and it starts to turn over that defense, which they have to do. It's what they've always been known for. It's always been known. The steel curtain, right? That's their calling card. They have to turn it over if they want to stay competitive on the defensive side of the football. So that's what I think they do. Derek Harmon comes in. He's their pick. Makes sense. There you go. The Chargers are on the clock. Who's sitting there? Who's waiting for them? Two players. If the draft goes this way, which obviously it will not, but if it goes somewhat like I have it going, there's two players sitting here that are fairly big needs, and I think they're the only two clicks on the board for them. And they're both Michigan players. We got Kenneth Grant sitting right there, an interior defensive lineman, which they absolutely need. Absolutely need an interior defensive lineman. And then it's Colston Loveland who's still sitting on the board. So 2 points of need, two Michigan guys. What direction do they go? So I think that they have bigger needs, and defensive line is a bigger need for me. Kenneth Grant is a bigger need for me. So I would probably go with Kenneth Grant. But Colston Loveland is the best player on the board right now. He's the best player available. And he's the guy, if we're looking at the offensive players that are left, the wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, I think that Colston Loveland's the guy that would make the most difference on this offense with what they have for their scheme, right? In a Greg Roman offense with a Jim Harbaugh run team, head coach team, I think that Colston Loveland would be the bigger difference maker on offense than any of the wide receivers that are available. So basically it's between Kenneth Grant and Colston Loveland. And I just think that Colston Loveland is the better player available right now. And that's the direction that they go. So Colston Loveland to the Chargers. I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's either him or Grant. And they just go with offense. They go with Colston Loveland. There you go. Green Bay Packers are on the board. What direction do they go? So they could use a lot. Not a crazy amount, but they definitely have a lot of holes. Let's take a look at the Green Bay Packers. They brought in Aaron Banks, helps that offensive line. They have Jordan Morgan, first-round pick last year, who's listed as a death piece right now. Battle with Rasheed Walker, probably. Swing tackle kind of guy, can fill in where you need him. So they're in a pretty good spot on the offensive line. Not going to be tight end, that's for sure, but there's no other tight ends that are going in the first round, in my opinion. Defensive side of the ball, they definitely need some depth on the defensive line. Kenny Clark's getting a little bit older. They could use another pass rusher potentially, but I think they can get by with Enigbare. Van Lucas needs to play a little bit more, get a few more snaps under his belt. Linebackers in a great spot with Isaiah McDuffie coming back as well. Corner could definitely be a click because Keyshawn Nixon is more a nickel corner. But I mean, he can get the job done. Safety's in a great spot. Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard. Safety's in a great spot for the Packers. So what direction do they go? I think we all know that they need a wide receiver. They've made no secret of needing and wanting a wide receiver. They haven't taken a wide receiver in the first round in over 20 years. But I think they break that streak this year. Romeo Doubs, I thought he could have been cut, honestly. Probably won't be because his contract is so cheap. But he might not be on this team after this year. Plus, he's got a ton of concussion issues, which we know about. Christian Watson might not play at all this season. A lot of injury history there, right? So how do we replace the speed element of this offense? I think we look at who ran the fastest at the combine, and it's got to be Matthew Golden. So you're replacing that one-to-one speed with Christian Watson, but you're getting a better overall wide receiver. And I'm not a huge Matthew Golden fan, but I would be willing to admit that I think he's a better overall wide receiver than Christian Watson is, to be honest. So that's the direction I think they go. Matthew Golden to the Packers. Again, they replace that speed element, but they get more talented. And I think he pairs up nicely with Tucker Kraft and with Jaden Reed. So that's the direction that I think they go. Vikings are on the clock. What do? Made a lot of movement in free agency. They made a lot of moves, did a lot of good things, but they definitely still have a lot of holes. There's a lot of holes on this Vikings team. So let's take a look at their draft capital. 4 picks. I know for a fact that Kwasi Udalfa-Mensah is not happy about this. He does not want 4 draft picks. So again, I'm not the only one that thinks this, but I absolutely agree that this is a trade down spot. So who's trading up and for what? Who's still available and who does it make sense for someone to trade up and get? I think you guys are going to know where I'm going with this after I tell you the team. It's the Cleveland Browns. Hold the first pick in the second round, pick 33 for 24. They throw in pick 67, another third round pick, and then juice it up a little bit, pick 200. They have lots of picks. They have lots of capital. They got Travis Hunter, who went to what school? Right? I think you know where I'm going with this. So let's force that trade through. The Vikings pick up 2 additional draft picks, right? Pick 67 and pick 200, which could really look nice with their draft capital. There's no one particularly on the board for the Vikings that they really have to have. So I think they're happy to make this trade. And the Browns come up and they get Shedeur Sanders. Pair him up with Travis Hunter, right? Obviously. Kenny Pickett's there. Joe Flacco's there. So you don't necessarily have to start Shedeur Sanders. And I really, really do not think that he should. So you don't have to start him. You can have Joe Flacco. You can have Pickett do their thing. You're not going to be the greatest team. And if Shedeur comes in and just wins the job, he wins the job. Wonderful. That's a good problem to have. But I think it makes a lot of sense for what they want to do and how they want to turn over this quarterback room. I think it's really the only viable thing that they can do as a franchise is bring in a rookie and hopefully he wins the job. If not, he's going to be your future anyways. You're tied down to Deshaun Watson's anchor of a contract for the next 4 years. So you got to be cheap at that position. So you're going to get at least 3 seasons out of Shedeur Sanders before you have to pay him. And maybe you don't. Maybe you get more. He's maybe not quite that guy. It takes him a while to get there, whatever. And I honestly think Kenny Pickett can start in this league. Like, he's shown that he can. He has a winning record, and a Super Bowl ring, but that's neither here nor there. But I just think that's the spot that makes the most sense for a trade up. And I really do not think that Shedeur Sanders is going to go before pick 24. I wouldn't be shocked if he falls completely out of the first round. But if it kind of goes this way, I think it makes sense for the Browns to trade up and get him. Everybody's going to be happy. There's going to be a lot of buzz around the team, where there's been a massive black cloud instead of this huge black cloud that's been surrounding the Cleveland Browns. Maybe there's some optimism there. There's a ray of sunshine poking through the black cloud that is Deshaun Watson, right? You got Shedeur Sanders, you got Travis Hunter. We're happy, we're having fun, that sort of a thing. So I think that makes a lot of sense. It's a trade that can definitely be pulled off. It makes a lot of sense for the Vikings. And there you go. That's what I think they do. So Texans are on the clock. Houston Texans are on the clock. Which direction do they go? They could definitely go. Actually, let's talk about this. Everybody seems to think that they need offensive line, right? Which I can understand why you would say that and think that. But look what they did in free agency. They brought in Cam Robinson. That's pretty close to a wash to Laramie Tunsil. Like, it's not that much of a difference between Cam Robinson and Laramie Tunsil. It's not that much of a difference. Titus Howard's still there. Jared Patterson, yeah, maybe he can get the job done, I suppose. Juice Scruggs is probably going to be that center, and then right guard is maybe Ed Ingram, most likely, is the way I would look at this. Blake Fisher's there at right tackle, but Trent Brown, a longtime veteran comes in. Laken Tomlinson, he can play in this league, right? So I really don't think that it's as much of a need at all than that other people think it is. Tyler Booker's been linked here, which I get. He's been called the Will Anderson of the offense at Alabama. So I get that. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. I really don't. I think that they have much bigger needs. And where are these needs? So let's look at the defensive side of the ball, where they are a very good team. They have a very good defense, actually. Kamari Lassiter looks really good. Ronald Darby comes in. Tremaine Smith, not bad at all, comes back to this team. Jalen Petrie's there. Derek Stingley is one of the highest paid. I think he is the highest paid corner in the league, right? Aziz Al-Shair, Henry To'oTo'o, EJ Speed, Christian Harris is there. They got a very good defense. Where are they a little bit weak? It's at the defensive line. Like, look at their defensive tackles here. Look at up the middle. Tim Settle and Sheldon Rankins. Those are they're not bad players, don't get me wrong, but they both specialize as pass rushing interior, linemen. They're not very good at the run. That's where they need to get a little bit better, in my opinion. So who's sitting there on the board staring them in the face that can clog up the middle and do a lot of the same things that they do, but also clog up the run game? It's Kenneth Grant. That's where I think Kenneth Grant makes the most sense. He goes in, clogs up the middle. Also, Tim Settle and Sheldon Rankins are on the last year of their contract. Rankins came in on a 1-year deal. Tim Settle is on the last year of his contract. So both of these players potentially are off of this team next season. So I think that makes tons of sense. Help that defense now and for the future. So easy click for me. Kenneth Grant, that's a little bit too far. But again, if it's a nose tackle, run stuffer type of a player, they're not typically going to go high in drafts unless they just destroy the combine like Jalen Davis did with Georgia last year and the Philadelphia Eagles selection, right? If you just go in and crush the combine and you're just a freak, which Kenneth Grant did not do, then yeah, you go higher in the draft. but he didn't. He's still a very good player. So this is perfect for me for where he should kind of go. So there you go. Makes a lot of sense. Now we're sitting on the clock. We got the LA Rams. First round pick. Don't have a lot of first round picks. Where do they go? They've been throwing a lot of volume at the defense. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round picks, just throwing a lot of volume at the defense and then just developing players. They've done a very good job at doing it, and they've gotten some very good players out of it. The defense is in a good spot. The only holes, the only hole on this entire team realistically is corner. They definitely need some corner help. Do I think they go that route? They definitely could. I don't think Malachi Starks would be the click. Trey Amos is there. Maxwell Harrison, Siobhan Ravel, all there. Do I think they go down that road? Probably not. Probably not. What do I think they do? I think the most sense, I think that they are relatively live to trade up for a tight end, but obviously they're both gone. No one's answering the phone. They aren't able to pull it together for either Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland. So what's next? Where do you go? What do you do to help get this team over the hump? They're chasing another Super Bowl. What can they do to get back there? I think that it's Emeka Egbuka. I think he walks into this team and makes a difference year one. And then he's also the future of this team. Devontae Adams is 33 years old, definitely on the back nine of his career. He could at any point fall off a cliff completely. 33-year-old wide receivers don't tend to continue to just crush it. Larry Fitzgerald, which, you could argue Devontae Adams and Larry Fitzgerald, very similar. But I think at this stage, we know who Tutu Atwell is, and we're not really too excited about that. They got Whittington in there, some other bodies, Xavier Smith, some other guys that they'd like. But I think if they bring in Emeka Egbuka, right, they can still run those 3 wide receiver sets, 11 personnel up the ass. They lead the league in 11 personnel percentage, and they keep that up with Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, and then you got, Emeka Egbuka in the slot. And then that gets them over the edge offensively, which is something that I think they need to do. I think they need one more pass catcher, whether it's a tight end or a wide receiver, to get them over the hump. Plus, Emeka Egbuka, very, very responsible in run D or run blocking. Very responsible. And we know that's important. We know that's important to McVay. So I think that makes the most sense. Get him in there, complete your offense, give Matthew Stafford another weapon, and hopefully that gets you over the edge and you're able to get back to a Super Bowl and obviously ultimately win the Super Bowl. So we got the Baltimore Ravens on the clock. What was the Buccaneers pick? The Buccaneers not breaking any ground, I don't think. They went and picked Jihad Campbell at 19. A lot of connection there. A lot of people have Campbell going to him. We'll do a roll call after this Ravens click, and then we'll take a look through it again. Yeah, it was Jihad Campbell. So there you go. Ravens are on the clock. What are the Ravens doing? They've got some needs. Ronnie Stanley's 1 year older. They could definitely use some help on the offensive line. They could use some help on the defensive line. But where do I think they go? I think this is just a player that they like. And I talked about it earlier. I think they like him a lot. And I talked about it earlier that I think he might have just been misused horribly. And I think it's going to come to a surprise to people. It's not Mike Green. It's not Donovan Ezeraku. It's not James Pierce. It's not Amarian Hampton. It's not Malachi Starks. It's Nick Skirton. Why do I think they take Nick Skirton? Well, number one, like I said, I think he was misused at Texas A&M. He dropped 30 pounds roughly between the end of the season at Texas A&M and the combine. So he's more of that outside rusher, 3-4 outside linebacker, right? 257, I think is what he's coming in at. There's all kinds of connection between the Ravens and Skirton. And at the pro day, at the Texas A&M pro day, the Ravens were running the linebacker drills. Who do you think they were looking at? To me, it's got to be Nick Skirton, right? Kyle Van Noy is in the last year of his contract, probably retire after this season. David Ojabo's still there, but he's never really gotten back. He's never really gotten there, since the torn Achilles that he had in his pro day coming out of Michigan a few years back, right? He's never really gotten there. So they definitely need some help at edge rusher. And I think this is their future. So Nick Skirton, again, they ran the drills at his pro day. Why are they doing that? Just for fun? No, they wanted to get a good look at what the things that he could do, right? So that's the direction I think that they go. This was a tough one to kind of nail down, but I thought that one made a lot of sense right there. So Nick Skirton, 27 to the Ravens. Let's do a quick roll call again, and then we'll wrap it up with the last kind of 5 picks here. First overall, Cam Ward, no surprise there. Right? Travis Hunter, 2nd overall to the Browns. Abdul Carter, 3rd overall to the Giants. Will Campbell to the Patriots at 4. Mason Graham, 5th to the Jaguars. Jalen Walker, the first kind of oddball pick, little off the cuff, a little bit of a surprise. Jalen Walker to the Raiders at 6. Tyler Warren to the Jets at 7. Ashton Genty trade up. The Dallas Cowboys trade up and select Ashton Genty at 8. Jahdae Barron at 9 to the Saints. Michael Williams to the Bears at 10. Armand Mambu, 11 to the San Francisco 49ers. Tedero McMillan in the back end of that trade to the Carolina Panthers at 12. Kelvin Banks at 13 to the Dolphins. Shamar Stewart to the Colts at 14. Jackson Dart, big trade up. Giants trade back into the first. They trade Kayvon Thibodeau. They get their quarterback of the future, Jackson Dart at 15 to the Giants. Josh Simmons to the Cardinals at 16. Will Johnson to the Bengals at 17. Nick Emenwari at 18 to the Seahawks. Geod Campbell at 19 to the Bucks. We got Trevion Henderson at 20 to the Broncos. Pick number 21 is Derek Harmon to the Steelers. Number 22, the Chargers select Colston Loveland. Matthew Golden goes to the Packers at 23. Big trade up again. The Browns trade back into the first round with the Minnesota Vikings. They get their quarterback of the future, Shadur Sanders, at pick number 24. The Houston Texans select Kenneth Grant at 25. Emeka Ibuka, number 26, to the Rams. And then Nick Skirton at 27 to the Ravens. Hopefully you like that pick. Alberta Alpha, appreciate you. Bindles, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Now we've got the Lions on the clock. Pick number 28. What do the Lions want to do? Let's take a look at their team. Let's take a look at the roster and discuss what I feel their needs are. So wide receiver, I think they could definitely use a wide receiver. Do they want to sink that capital in now? I really do not think so at all. Definitely not tight end, definitely not quarterback, definitely not running back. Let's look at the offensive line in a second. We've got, Aiden Hutchinson, definitely a massive need, right? Across from Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Pascal, DeMarcus Davenport from a first-round pick. They need some help at edge rusher, defensive end. No question they need some help. Ali McNeil tore his ACL. That's a big problem. Might not be back till God knows when. Levi Onwuzurike had a back fusion not too long ago. He's a bit of a concern always. DJ Reader's getting older. So there's definitely some concerns all over this defensive line, right? Linebacker's in a great spot. No issues there. Corner is actually in quite good spot with DJ Reed coming in and Avonte Maddox. They got Amik Robertson. Ennis Rexstraw was another nickel corner kind of a guy. Brian Branch is fantastic. Kirby Joseph's very good. Back end of this defense is actually in a pretty good spot. So defensive line, absolutely at the top of the list, no question. Is that the way they go? I'm not so sure. Kevin Zeitler is no longer on this team, right? So there's a huge hole at right guard for this team. Graham Glasgow can definitely be, he's 33 years old and can be moved on after this season. So there's a couple holes coming up here. What's the direction that I think they go? I think they keep a strength to strength. They want to run the ball. They need a good offensive line, and they get some versatility. And it's Gray Zabel. He can play literally anywhere on this offensive line. So if there's any issues, he'll plug directly into right guard right now. He'll be your starting right guard. And then if there's any issues anywhere on the offensive line, Penei Sewell can move over to left tackle if need be. You can play Zabel at right tackle. You can move him around. He can play center. You can play him wherever you want. And he's kind of that Dan Campbell kind of a guy from what I heard at the Senior Bowl, he was just get me in, reps. I can do that. Oh, you need a center? I'm in. Oh, you need a left tackle? I'll do it. Oh, right tackle? Let's go. He was doing everything he could do at the Senior Bowl. And I think he's that type of a guy. He's a Dan Campbell kind of a guy, knee biter kind of a dude. So what do you need from me? Yes, sir, I'll do it. Let's go. Football. Let's go. That's what I think Gray Zabel's all about. And I think Dan Campbell's going to love that about him. And it is a need. Might not be the biggest need. I think defensive line is probably the biggest need, but it's probably the second biggest need. And again, much like what I was saying about the Miami Dolphins, you want to keep a strength to strength, right? What you're strong at, you want to continue to be strong at and lean on that, right? So they want to run the ball. They want to control the clock. You need a good offensive line to do that. You don't want to be thinner at two spots, right? Like they're going to be not like, let's say they take whatever, Donovan Ezeraku here. Is that going to make your defensive line exceptionally better? No. You take Gray Zabel, yeah, it is going to complete your offensive line. So I think it just makes more sense to keep that strength to strength and then just throw some volume at the defensive line. And they might bring back Zadarius Smith. I think he will probably ultimately come back to this team, and then just throw some volume at it. And hopefully you can get some health out of Onwuzurike. And then, Ali McNeil can come back fully healthy at some point. So that's the direction I think that the Detroit Lions go. Super not sexy, but it's going to make this team better at the end of the day. So here we are. Washington Commanders are on the clock. What do they want to do? Let's look at the draft capital. Pick 29, 61, and then not till 128, 205, 245. These picks are basically nothing, 7th round picks. You might be able to get 3 quality players, but they've got a lot of needs. They definitely want to get back to the playoffs. They want to get back deep into the playoffs, hopefully go to a Super Bowl. Can they achieve that with getting 3, picks right here? I honestly don't think so. I think they need to add some volume. They need some draft capital here. Who's going to trade up and for what? It's always the question we want to ask, right? So who has what I always like to look at and think about in these situations, trading back into the end of the first round? They're going to want picks back. The team that's trading out, in this case, the Commanders, they're going to want a 2nd round pick back. I can't be off the clock till pick 61. I can't. I need something back, right? So who has multiple relatively early 2nd round picks and has a need right here where the player's still available? It is the Chicago Bears. So they have picks 39 and 41, 2 early 2nd round picks. And 72, they got a bunch of other picks, a bunch of capital, and they filled a massive need at defensive end already. So what do? 39 for 29, right? And then we'll throw you our 3rd round pick, pick 72 to move up. They still have an early 2nd round pick that they can use to make their team better, and then a couple late round picks. But these 3, 10, 29, and 41, those are the picks that are going to make the Bears that much better with everything that they've done in free agency and what they already have on that team. I think it makes tons of sense to pull the trigger on a trade like this for the Bears. So they do. And what are they trading up for? Who's sitting there waiting for them? Who's that David Montgomery, for Ben Johnson? Omarion Hampton. Sitting right there, 29, easy trade up. That's why they give up. You could say it's a little bit much, pick 72 to move up 10 spots, but he's sitting there staring in the face. That's what we need to do. We're going to go up and get our guy. And then they still have pick 41, right? So at pick 41, they could take a wide receiver like a Kyle Williams, like a Jalen Noel, a slot kind of a wide receiver at 41. And then their team is complete. It is awesome. It's a very nice looking team, very, very good looking roster. And they can be very excited about that roster heading into the 2025 season. So I think that makes a ton of sense, definitely for the Bears. And I think it makes a lot of sense for the Commanders as well. Get themselves another, top 75 pick, basically, right? And move back a little bit. They get an early 2nd round pick. They get another 3rd round pick. They can fill some holes. And the Bears get their running back that they're after. I think that the Commanders could just take Hampton there as well, but I think they have more holes and more needs than just taking Hampton. That's my opinion on it. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Plus, you can pick 76. That's juicy in a deep running back class. They can get another running back later in this draft that's not as good as Hampton, don't get me wrong, but can definitely get the job done, especially when you still have Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr. still there. So there you go. Bears trade up and get a Marion Hampton. Now we're looking at the Buffalo Bills, pick number 30. Where do they hurting? What's going to get them to the Super Bowl? What's going to get them over the hump, right? What do they need? We know their offense is in a good spot, right? It's always going to be in a good spot with Josh Allen. I really do not think it's wide receiver here. I really, really, really do not think that they go wide receiver here at all. I would be shocked personally if they take a wide receiver. So what do they need? They do need some defensive line help. You know, Joey Bosa comes in, free agent comes in. Michael Hecht from the Rams, he comes over. He can play defensive line outside. He can do a couple different things. Larry Ogunjobi's there. Both of those players, Michael Hecht and Larry Ogunjobi, PED suspensions. They'll miss the first 6 games of the season. So that creates a need, right? They definitely will have a bit of a need. Do they want to address that in the first round? I don't really think it's necessary with what they already have. You know, AJ Epinesa, Gregory Rousseau, they have some guys there. Naquan Jones, Ed Oliver, right? They have some stuff that they don't really need to force it in the first round, I don't think. Wide receiver is off the board for me personally, as far as first round pick. So what's the biggest need then? To me, it's got to be the back end of this defense. It's got to be corner. Has to be. So who do they like? Who have they been connected to? They've been connected to a lot of corners, almost all of them that are available here. So they've been connected to Maxwell Hairston, Siobhan Revelle, I believe, Dorian Strong, Azariah Thomas. They've been connected to, but I think it's Trey Amos. Big 4.3 speed. I think it makes the most sense. He comes in. He's their corner one. Tre'Davious White came back, but he's a leader, role player type of guy. Dane Jackson came back, again, leader, role player type of a guy. Really, it's Christian Benford and Teron Johnson is really all they have in the back end of this defense. They have some talent at safety. You know, Derek Forrest comes in. He can do some good stuff. Cole Bishop was a second-round pick last year. He's okay. You know, DeMar Hamlin's still there. But I think they need a corner. They need corner help. You can never have enough corners in this league, in my opinion. So there you go. That's what the Buffalo Bills do, in my opinion. Draft Hampton, so my 0 shares of Swift don't hurt me. I like that trade. There you go. I think everybody would. Who the Patriots takes at 4? Hope it's Will Campbell. It is Will Campbell. Yep. Appreciate you coming on. It was Will Campbell. You like the Bears trade, I'd imagine, is what you're talking about. I don't have the Bills taking Mike Green. I don't think it's big enough a need. I really don't. Amos to Arizona. You think he goes to Arizona, the Cardinals? That would be a little early for Trey Amos for me, but not crazy. Am I hearing any chatter that they move up for a tackle? I don't think so. Like we're there right now. We're on the Chiefs. I don't think they trade up for a tackle. There's one tackle. There's one tackle that they've been connected to that's in the range of who they would pick right here. And that is who I have them picking. There's one tackle. So I do have them taking an offensive lineman. Now, who is it? So obviously they have Wanya Morris. They have Kingsley Suamatai. They're not left tackles. We found that out last year that they are not left tackles, right? Maybe there's a right tackle in there between the two of them, but especially with Suamatai, who played better in college at right tackle than he did at left tackle, actually. So Suamatai might be a right tackle, right? Juwan Taylor probably won't be there after this season. The contract, they're forced into having him regardless. They can save, I think, $20 million, I believe, off the top of my head, after the season's over. So he's the right tackle right now, but is he the right tackle of future? I don't know about that. So basically, if you're looking at this offensive line and looking at the players that they have, they need a left tackle, a left guard, and a right tackle out of Wanya Morris, Kingsley Suamatai, Jalen Moore, who they brought in, and a player that I will have them selecting here. So Jalen Moore comes in. He played pretty sparingly with the 49ers, part-time player, and a very good offensive line. So you could argue that, it wasn't him that was propping up those numbers. And you're not 100% sure what you're going to get out of Jalen Moore, who is a part-time player. Now he's being thrust into a full-time role. Is he going to succeed? I'm not sure. We need to make sure. With the best quarterback in the game, we need to be sure here. So who can we be sure with? Well, you can't be sure with anyone, but the only tackle in this range that they've been connected to is a local kid. He's from Kansas City. He played in a cold environment. And who is it? It's Ariante Ursi. He comes from, he grew up in Kansas City, played at Minnesota, cold weather, right? He has all the measurables that you need. He's been connected to them, which is he's the only tackle that could go in this range that's been connected to the Chiefs. They were the last meeting with him. This is important to me. They were the last meeting with Ursi at his pro day, which means there's no one else waiting, which means they get as much time as they want to talk to him with this prospect, right? And he's the only one that was brought in for a visit. Again, he's a Chiefs fan. He grew up a Chiefs fan, grew up in Kansas City. I think that makes the most sense for them. Again, when the talent is so close like it is, I'll say it again, like I said at the top of the draft, when the talent is as close as it is, you got to look for the little things. Because there's really, there's probably 40 to 80 players in second to third round draft grades. There's probably 10 first round draft grades in this class. It's not a lot. So it's all about character. It's all about fit. It's all about desire. It's all about these little things that I think that teams are going to be looking for. So a guy like Ariante Ursi, I think that makes tons of sense, where you got to fill those three spots: left tackle, left guard, and right tackle. I think Suamatai could be your right tackle. Ursi could be your left tackle or right tackle. And then there's a left guard in there pretty easily. Wanya Morris, whatever. You can fill it. Jalen Moore, if you had to. And you just say, you guys go battle. Whoever wins, wins. Whoever's the best player, you're going to be the starting left tackle. You're going to be the starting left guard. Whoever's the best player wins. So create some competition and get the best five out there. That's the reason why the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl, is their offensive line. And I think everybody knows that, right? So that's the direction I think that they go. I think it makes the most sense here. Where we got here? Let's go back. Oh no, Amos to Bills. Chiefs get Ursi. Yeah, you bet. The injured guy, Simmons. I have Simmons going to the Cardinals a bunch earlier. Torn ACL, but he should be all right. Off my board as well. Connolly, I mean, maybe, but there's just no connection whatsoever between the Chiefs and Connerly. There's just no connection whatsoever. So I don't know. I like Ursi. I think the talent is the same, honestly. Maybe, but who? If they're all off the board, if Trevion Henderson, Omarion Hampton, and Ashton Genty are all off the board, who are they taking in the first round? Ursi, that's who they took. Yeah. I think they take one in the later rounds. Could be Damian Martinez with their second round pick at 60, whatever, 63 or whatever it is. I think it could be Damian Martinez. I don't think they do trade up, personally. I can see them take Ursi, and the tackles are going to fly in the first round. I can see Simmons being the last starter. Yeah, potentially. I have him kind of playing left guard to start and then potentially moving to right tackle. Yeah, I'm pretty confident it says ACL. Yeah, I think it would make tons of sense personally. I think it's Martinez at 66. Yeah, I think it's Martinez personally. Ended Mayo's career, will put Cole Strange on the shelf for a year and a half. I believe it was a torn ACL for Simmons, actually, but correct me if I'm wrong. So last pick of the draft, we've got Philadelphia Eagles on the board. Not a lot of needs at all. This is a very complete team, man. Geez, this team is just as good as they were last year, if not better, with some of the guys they brought in free agency. It's really hard to find needs for this team. So where do they go? Last pick of the draft. There's three things that I know for sure. There's three certainties in life: death, taxes, and the Eagles taking a Georgia Bulldog in the first round. So CJ Gardner-Johnson, they traded to the Texans, right? He's no longer on this team. Reed Blankenship has played above his pay grade for his entire career, which is great. Hopefully you can continue to get that out of him. Sidney Brown probably ain't it. It's Malachi Starks. That's where we're going. It's Malachi Starks. Makes sense. They need a safety. There's not a lot of needs on this team at all. There's a lot of depth things that they can do. But I think as far as plug and play for like a starter, it's Malachi Starks for me. So that's going to be the click. I'll finish this in a second. We're going to talk about some of the guys that didn't go. Let's have these conversations. So a few things that came up. Few things that came up. Mike Green. So we got Mike Green, we got Walter Nolan, and we got James Pierce. Donovan Ezeraku as well. Those are the four. All edge rushers, Walter Nolan, defensive lineman, right? The rest, edge rushers. Mike Green, James Pierce, and Donovan Ezeraku. So why do I not have them in the first round? Are they first-round talents? Probably. But what did I say earlier, right? It's going to come down to character stuff, character concerns, issues that people might have with these players. So through my diggings, what did I find out about these players that made me say, I don't think that they're going to be first round picks, or teams might be a little leery and they may fall? Let's start with Walter Nolan. So Walter Nolan's there. He's a guy who's linked to my Bengals. He could be a Bengal. He's linked to a bunch of teams. Very quality player. Very quality player. The concerns that people have with Walter Nolan is he was in 5 different schools since high school, 2 colleges and 3 high schools. That's a concern. So people have called him, scouts and people in the league have called him a hired mercenary. There was some pre-NIL stuff with money and being paid to go to universities and high schools and things like that before NIL was a thing. So where's his head at? Is he in it for the team? Is he in it for the money? Like, is he a team player? All that kind of stuff. Big concerns. Do we want to go down that road with a nose tackle, defensive lineman, defensive tackle kind of a guy? If he absolutely blew the combine out of the water, maybe, but he really didn't. So there's some concerns there. That's why I have Walter Nolan falling out of the first round. Next up, let's go to Mike Green, because led the FBS in sacks, 17 and a half sacks, quality player. ADP on PFF here is 15. So he should be a first round pick, right? Concerns there. Strength of competition is a big one. Played at Marshall, obviously. That's the most obvious one. So there's that. And then he had 2 sexual assault allegations against him. One forced him to leave Virginia. He was a Virginia Cavalier before he went to Marshall. So one forced him out of that, and he has a second sexual assault allegation. I'm not saying he's guilty at all. I don't know. The only people that know in those types of situations, in sexual assault types of situations, I always say this, the only people that know the whole truth, nothing but the truth, the absolute truth, the only people are the man and the woman, or whatever, the 2 parties involved. Maybe it's a woman and a woman, maybe it's a man and a man. I don't know. But regardless, the 2 parties involved, or however many parties are involved in the situation, those are the only people that know the absolute 100%, no questions asked truth. So I don't know if he's guilty or not, but there's multiple allegations against Mike Green. So that's a concern for a lot of teams, I am sure. Couple that with the strength of competition issues, there's some concerns there. Next up, Let's go with Donovan Ezeraku. Honestly, there's nothing there. There's not a lot of concerns about Donovan Ezeraku. The only concern that's there is he's a bit of a tweener, 6'2", 240, 240 something, a little bit of a tweener, 3-4 outside linebacker type. So there's limited fits, relatively. Probably fits at the Ravens, the Vikings, the Steelers, the Broncos. All of those would be fits for him, but I just couldn't find it. Yeah, that's all I can say about him. Like, I just couldn't find a fit for Ezeraku. Somebody's gonna fall. Like, somebody's gonna fall for no reason. There's just not gonna be a spot. There's not a lot of connection, and someone's gonna fall. And realistically, it was Ezeraku. He was kind of the only one that just I couldn't find a spot. And that's that. There's nothing really, no real knock against him, if I'm being honest, except for he's a bit of a tweener. So there you go. That's the only real snub. To me, that's the only real snub of the first round is Donovan Ezeraku, actually. Last one, James Pierce. So a couple of things, big concerns with James Pierce. Two things said by NFL scouts. One was an NFL scout. One guy I think was connected to Tennessee. So an NFL scout, quote, "I want to be convinced that he loves this." Pretty big concern if you're not really sure if he loves football. Pretty big concern when you're about to pay him X amount of millions of dollars. Another issue that came up with James Pierce, I'll just read this verbatim. This isn't all of this isn't a quote, but I'll read this verbatim. James Pierce Jr. reportedly has the worst character report. Sorry, the quote, worst character report, end quote, of any player in this year's class, per Corey Kinnan. Pierce, who lit up the combine with a 4.47 40 at 6'5", 245, has raised some red flags due to perceived character concerns. Quote, "I was told that the Tennessee football program could not only breathe easier once Pierce left campus, but that his pitch count in SEC play was not injury related. Pierce was seen as undeniably uncoachable and as a player with one foot out the door already this season, giving his coaches little incentive to put him on the field full time," end quote, Kinnan wrote. Pretty concerning. So that's pretty concerning for James Pierce for me. So those are the reasons why I left those four players off and out of my first round. Three of them have legitimate reasons, legitimate concerns to fall. And Donovan Ezeraku, I just couldn't find it. So we're going to click the Malachi Starks for the Eagles. And that's the draft, peeps. That's the draft. There's your 2025 off the schneid NFL draft. I hope you liked it. I put a lot of work into this sucker. A lot of work, as I do every year. So hopefully some of this stuff makes sense and works and comes to fruition. That'd be a good time. Hit that like button. First time I'm asking for it, all 2 hours that we've been live. Hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. 2-hour episode, and we're going live tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 12-hour live stream. So the 500 subscriber count, we hit it a while back. We're at 5 something now. 12 hours straight tomorrow. Hopefully my voice can keep me in the game. We'll see. But hit that like and subscribe button if you don't mind. Let's take a look at a little bit of the chat before we take off. But appreciate you, Who Hames. Appreciate you coming in. Very difficult injury to come back from, even if he's ahead of schedule. Players usually don't come back. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. As far as I've heard, there's not too many concerns. Mike Green also quit the Senior Bowl without telling anyone. They found out by his agent. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Mike Green and James Pierce, I have some huge concerns with personally. Then goes a comment, says, "I've never been charged with anything," when no one knew about anything till, yeah. And I think Pierce was like, "I'm a good person. I'm good. I got a good heart. I'm a good guy." It's just like, okay, cool. We'll just take your word for it then. I mean, yeah. Yeah, there you go. There you go. There's huge concerns with James Pierce. Huge concerns. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, you got to break it down. There's got to be reasons why. You can't just throw it at a wall and hope something works, right? Outside the top 5, do you have any very high conviction ones in your mock? Pretty hard to be like super convicted. I like the Jackson Dart to the Giants personally. I really like that. I like Michael Williams to the Bears. Yeah, I mean, the later the draft goes, the harder it is to have an extreme amount of conviction, right? But those are some ones that I kind of really like. I like Shamar Stewart to the Colts too. But yeah, I'm not a appreciate that, but I'm not a Marcus Yarns guy personally. My deep sleepers, I mean, yeah, you'd have to watch the show. I think this is the first time I've seen you in the chat, so keep coming in tomorrow. The 12-hour live stream, we'll be doing drafts, so we'll be talking more about who I like, deep sleepers, things like that. I'm sure we'll be talking about this mock draft a little bit. That's for sure. So, like I said, hit that like button, leave a comment after the fact. If you're watching it back afterwards. But yeah, tomorrow, 12 hours live. We're starting at 12 Eastern, noon Eastern, and then we'll be going to midnight Eastern tomorrow. It's going to be fun. A lot of friends and family, a lot of drafting. We're going to be doing a lot of, I got about 10 more big boards to do, and we pretty much got to get them in right away. We're running out. I've got a biggest board and a bigger board that I still have a bullet in. We might do those tomorrow, one of or both. We'll see. But come check it out. Again, hit that like button on your way out. Like we always say on Off the Schneid, if you're afraid to be wrong, you'll never be right. Hopefully tonight we're pretty accurate with our mock draft. If some of the stuff comes true, then I'll be victory lapping the shit out of this. But appreciate you guys. We've got the NFL draft in a week. We'll see you there. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace. Have yourself